Good morning, Way Church. Today is June 15th, 2025, and it's also Father's Day. And so, I've been telling you, I'm going to be doing our first message on the Father Heart of God. Before I get started, though, I really wanted to talk about information plus application equals transformation. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I can share all this word that the Lord has given me to you, but as long as I'm sharing this word with you and talking about this word with you, just because you have the information does not mean that anything in your life is going to transform unless you apply it to your life. So I just wanted to get you started with that, but I'm going to go ahead and get started on our message for today. So, real quick question. Who here has heard or knows of the Father Heart of God? And I'm not just meaning, oh, he's got a heart. No, I'm referring to that relationship, the father-heart relationship with God. And then my next question is, why is the Father Heart of God so important to know about? So, the answer to both of those, or the answer to that second question in particular, on why the Father Heart of God is so important to know about, is because the minute you ask Christ into your heart, the minute you receive Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, not only is He your Lord and Savior, but He is also your Father. And having that relationship, being able to have that relationship, is probably one of the best things you can possibly have. So before I get to our story today, I want to talk about a couple types of fathers. The first one is the giving father. This father is the one who is never around his kids and only gives his gift to show his love, but never spends time with them. This father is the father that goes up to little Jimmy and is like, "Hey, little Jimmy, I got a gift for you. Here you go." And then he leaves. That's the giving father. He's not the one that goes to the sports games, or isn't the one who stays with his kid when his kid needs help. He's the one that just gives them something and then goes. The next father is the abusive father. This father is the one who no matter what the kid does, he abuses them verbally or physically. So we got little Jimmy over here, and this father is the one who is like, the little Jimmy gets in a cookie jar and he's like, and he just starts beating on Jimmy. Or this father is the one who little Jimmy does something good, but in the father's eyes it may have been something bad, but in reality it was something good. And then we got the father who's never there. This father is the one who's never around, doesn't spend time with their kids or gift them anything. This is the father who's absent in the child's life. And then our fourth one is the loving father. This father is the one who is around, who spends time with the family, who disciplines, who gives things just because he loves his children. The loving father shows his love through his actions toward his children. This father is the one who, no matter what his life looks like, no matter what his children's life looks like, he's always going to be there. He's going to the sports games that he's possibly able, or that he's always able to go to. He's going to his children's concerts. He's going to all these certain things for his children. That is what the loving father is. The loving father is the one who, no matter what his child does, if his child is being naughty and getting into something they're not supposed to, he's the one who sits them down and is like, "I love you, but I'm going to have to discipline you. I'm going to have to put you in time out," or whatever the situation may be. That is the loving father. The loving father is the one who's like, "I'm just going to randomly get my kid a gift today just because I love them." That is the loving father. So my next question after this, all of this, is who's heard of the prodigal son story? And I know every church talks about the prodigal son. The son left, it comes back, and then there's the dad. I know every church talks about this story. But I'm going to put this more in the fact of the father's perspective rather than the son's perspective. So we're going to go to Luke 15, 11 to 32. Get there real quick. Sorry, I gotta... Luke 15. Okay, Luke 15, 11, 32. So this is starting off the prodigal son story. I'm going to read it through once, and then after that, I'm going to kind of just break it down. And he said, there was a man who had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, forgive me the share of property that is coming to me. Oh, give me the share of property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered up all he had and took a journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property in reckless living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of his citizens of that country, who sent him into the fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servant, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let us eat and celebrate, for my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and now is found. And they began to celebrate. Now his older son was in the fields, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound. But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him. But he answered his father, look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat, that I might celebrate with my friends. But when a son of yours came, who was devoured your property with prostitution, you killed the fattened calf for him. And he said to him, son, you are always with me, and all that was mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. So now that I've read through that once, I'm going to start breaking it down for you guys. So, so I'm going to just read verse by verse and kind of just break it down verse by verse. It says, And he said, there was a man who had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of property that's coming to me. And he divided his property between them. So, breaking this down, typically giving the property to your children wasn't something they would typically do until I think they were either dead or until the child hit a certain age. So either this child was at a certain age, or he just demanded the property from his father. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine rose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods of pigs who ate, and no one gave him anything. So, in this verse, in that little section right there, we're understanding that even though he was working, he sent himself out to work. He would send himself out to make money. Probably all he was being paid was a place to live, because here he's saying he hired himself out. So there it's explaining he was working, he was getting paid for his work, but I don't think he was getting paid enough to live for eating as well. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. So in this very moment of being in the pig pens and feeding these pigs and taking care of these pigs and basically being low and basically he's just in you situation in that moment. He's thinking, what if I just return home as one of my father's servants? I'm his son, but what if I just go home and be his servant? I don't even care at this point if he receives me back as my son, as a son. I want to be one of his servants. He treats his servants better than what I'm being treated right now. And that's kind of, in a way, how our heart, or how it is with God sometimes with us. We walk away from God for a minute, and we're over here, and God's over there, and he's way over there in our thoughts. And in that very moment, we're like, how do I get out of this situation so I can be just a little closer to God? And in that very moment is what this son is kind of in. He's how can I get out of this situation right here and just be a little closer to God? And so, and he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to his father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. So you know how a minute ago I was saying, Father's over here, and the son was over here? In that very moment, the son was probably, this is how I imagine it, the son was probably walking like this, real slow, getting ready to explain what he did. Getting ready to explain to his father what he did, how he wasted all of that money, how he wasted all of that property that his father gave him. But in the process of the son walking like this, the father comes running. And back then, a man running was not considered appropriate. So the father came running, and he picked his son up and just gave him a big hug. And that right there shows you that father's heart for his son. And the son said to him, Father, nope, that's not it. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let us eat and celebrate, for my son was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found, and they began to celebrate. So right there, after the father embraces his son and gives him a big hug and says, welcome home, son. Not only does he say welcome home, but he tells his servants, he's like, go grab my probably most expensive meat from the field, the fattened calf, the most expensive meat from the field, and bring it. And on top of that, not only that, I want you to bring him my best robe. And robes back then were their main apparel. And not only that, he said, bring shoes for his feet. And so, in a ring for his hand. So he listed a bunch of different things. And you know how I was saying the loving father will gift, just to gift sometimes? This, I believe, was one of those moments. The father was like, you are home. Here's the stuff. And in the father's mind, he didn't even care. I believe the father knew what the son's situation was, because bring my finest robe, shoes for his feet, ring for his finger. In that moment, all I imagine is his son walking home in rags and torn up clothes and no shoes on his feet. His feet were probably filthy. And so in that very moment, that father is seeing what his son needs. Now we go from there to the older son. Now his older son was in the field, and he came to draw near to the house. He heard music and dancing. He called one of his servants and asked, what do these things mean? And he said to him, your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound. But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him. So, in that moment, we have the oldest son, and we have the father. And the oldest son's out here like, why? Why is he giving him this stuff? Why? Why? Why does he get this stuff? Why does he get this stuff? Why don't I get this stuff? You know? And so, in that moment, the father comes out with this plate of food and treated him. That's what I'm imagining. The father comes out with a plate of food and sits there. The oldest son. And he sits there with his son, and he's like, what's the matter? What do you, how can I help? And he said to him, your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound. Okay. But he answered his father, Look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. And he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad for your brother. He is dead and he is alive. He is lost and is found. So that very last part where the father sits down with the oldest son and explains to him, your brother was dead. You've been with me all these years. Why can't I give him just a small portion? Because you think about it, the land, at the very beginning of the story, it was talking about how the land was separated between those two sons, the youngest son and the oldest son, but the oldest son stayed with his father. The youngest son was the one that went and spent the money and got rid of all the property. Here we have the dad talking with the oldest son, saying, what is mine is yours. Because in that very moment, he was saying, what I have left, what your youngest brother did not take, is going to be yours. The minute I decide to give this property to you, it is yours. So what does it mean to give him just a small portion of what I have left compared to this big portion you're going to get later? And during that time, our cows are going to have more calves. You're going to have another fattened calf. So he was just trying to get down to his level. And I believe also sometimes this thing of the oldest brother and the youngest brother, sometimes that's us as Christians. Us as Christians will sometimes look at these newer Christians, or look at these other people who had a different lifestyle or a visible lifestyle compared to ours. Sometimes we'll look at the homeless person, and we'll be like, you, get away from me, you are not like me. And that is not how we're supposed to be as Christians. We're supposed to be getting down to their level, talking with them, sharing the gospel with them. That's how we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to have that attitude of the older brother who is like, he's home and I don't want... No, we're supposed to be down to his level. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I have that attitude and I don't even mean to. And I'm just using the homeless people as one example, but there's a bunch of different groups of people that us as Christians will frown upon. And we're supposed to really just get down on their level and love them as they are. And so, in all of this, we also saw the dad, the father, running down the road, embracing his son. And that is how our relationship with God needs to be sometimes. Sometimes we're like, we screwed up, we messed up, I'm down, I'm gloomy, I'm beat down. And then over here, we have the Father, and he's running. He's just running to see us, because in that very moment, you know the Father kept an eye out for his son. Because if he saw him down the road, the Father has been looking all those years. He's not just staying there blind. He's staying there, and he's looking. He's going out, and he's looking. And that is what the Father heart of God is. Because in that moment, when we're down and we're like, we messed up, God is never done looking for us. He's always there, and he's always going to be there. And God is that loving Father. He is the one who is always around to spend time with us. He wants to have time with us. He wants to have that relationship with us. He wants to talk to us every single day. So in those days where you're down, don't stop looking for your Father. Keep going back to your Father, because He wants that time with you. He wants time with you 24/7. But He also disciplines. And in this time of discipline, it may seem like that He doesn't love you, but He really does. God the Father is always there. He's always there and loving you. Me as a father now, I have 2 kids, and whenever I have to discipline, especially my oldest, my youngest is a little too young to discipline, he's only 7 months, but my oldest, whenever I have to discipline him, it makes my heart very sad. I don't like disciplining him, but in that moment of discipline, it's teaching him to not do that thing again, because it may hurt him, or it may hurt somebody else. And in that very moment, he's learning, oh, I shouldn't do this again. And that's sometimes what God has to do with us. We might mess up. We might be over here doing something we're not supposed to do, but God is right there to discipline us. But it does make Him sad whenever we disobey. Sometimes God will just gift us things, as the Father gifts us things, because there's times where we're like, Lord, I really want this, but I know I don't have the finances for it. Please provide it. And sometimes the answer will be no, but sometimes He'll be like, here you go, son. Here you go, daughter. And sometimes He'll show His love through actions. And what I mean by actions is you'll see the beauty in His creation. I just recently moved, and where I move, sometimes I'll see a deer out in my front yard. And with this deer, it's like, it always reminds me personally, maybe not for other people, but for me personally, it reminds me how much God loves me. And through that action of bringing the deer into the yard, for me, it shows me how much God truly loves me. And so, in all these things that I'm talking about with the Father heart of God, the thing I want you to mainly remember out of this message is the fact of you can have that relationship with Him. You can have a constant longing for a relationship with Him. I'm going to tell you right now, sometimes when I'm at work, my job is very much around people all the time. I'm over here talking to somebody, I'm over here talking to somebody, I'm over there talking to somebody. But in this time of spending time with the Lord, even though you're talking to someone, in your head, you can be praying. You can be talking in tongues. And you can be doing that in your car while you're driving. You can be like, you can be praying in your car. And that is what the Father heart of God truly is. You is spending time with the Lord, having that relationship with the Lord. Because you really think about it, a father is supposed to have that relationship with their kids. If he does not have that relationship with their kids, that is not a father heart. And for all of you moms out there who have to take that father role, you're the best. But still, what my point is, the Father heart of God is probably the most important thing to know, to learn, to understand how and who His heart is. So I'm going to leave you with this little phrase. And the phrase is, God wants full custody. He doesn't want just weekend visits.